So let's continue with the second part of chapter 4. Not the second part which I had announced, but actually the roles of analytical and resting meditations in Shamatha and Vipassana. That's the title. Because Shamatha and Vipassana are not identical with resting meditation and analytical meditation. Shamatha has both aspects and Vipassana has both aspects. And we need to understand that one does not equal the other. During Shamatha practice, during the practice of mental calm, of calm abiding, we need analysis, this discerning wisdom, to know the afflictions, the presence, the cause, the interaction, and the nature of the afflictions, the emotional obscurations. And we need analysis to modify our way to meditate in accordance with the actual experience. The main purpose of meditation being to purify the kleshas, the afflictions, the emotional states, then there needs to be a capacity active that knows their presence, observes how they arise, what precedes a certain mental state, what are the factors helping that it finishes, what are the factors prolonging it. So all of this is the analytical aspect of Shamatha practice. And of course, knowing the presence of dullness, torpor, sluggishness, or agitation, stress, bewilderment, and so on. But when the aim of resting naturally supple in clear awareness is achieved, all further analytical processes need to be abandoned. This is called the pacification of discernments at the end of analysis, which leads into non-conceptual, unmoving Vipassana. So, all analysis in the calm state of mind, however beneficial it may be, will have the effect, if it is well done, to kind of dissolve a knot. So for example, I've heard from many students that they, at some point in their practice, they were able to look into a fear. The fears, some of these fears were present since childhood. And when looking into the fear that made them always run away, protect themselves, become shaky and so on, when looking into it, seeing that it has no self-entity, no core could be found, that actually it's empty of nature, then no more. No further investigation. Then the mind stays in open recognition, non-conceptual, no more analysis, just open knowing. And this is the pacification of discernments, the pacification of all analytical movements, distinguishing one from the other, trying to see where does it center, is there fear, is there still some fear there? All of that having been done and having been satisfactorily answered, then the analytical process opens up and one stays pacified at the end of analysis. And that's insight at that moment. Deep insight if there is absolutely no observing activity going on, or dualistic, tainted insight, tainted with the presence of an observer, still maintaining some kind of control, if there is still this slightly checking, observing, controlling attitude. When conceptual thinking and analysis stop, after full discernment, true Vipassana arises, and we simply rest in the view. The unification of calm and insight is achieved, and we only occasionally use analysis to verify just how the meditation goes. So, resting in the view is that moment of seeing the absence of substantiality in any of the emotions that we look into, in any of the mental states, looking into the subject, looking into the object. That which arises then, when it shows as open mind, that's called true Vipassana, resting in the view. Seeing the non-self. Nothing to be seen. Yes? Seeing non-self. Nothing. The fact that there is nothing to be seen in full seeing, this is called the seeing. And it's the union of calm and insight, because there is the seeing, the knowing, together with the complete peace and calm of mind. That's why it's called unification of calm and insight. Now when that happens, when mind opens into its own natural state, we don't disturb. There's nothing to do. And as it continues, then slight dualistic movements will reappear, sure, because all the deep habitual tendencies are not yet purified, and occasionally we have an analytical look. Does all of that which manifests now dissolve by itself? Or is there anything to be done about that? Do these dualistic tendencies, these subtle tendencies, reinstall themselves to such a degree that I have to change my way of practicing, or my way of looking, my posture, and so on. But this is just done from time to time. And when there is a deep trust, normally nothing needs to be done. It feels as if we just need to reactivate the view, the understanding, the seeing of just how it is. As Milarepa might say in his example, we are like a little bit heating up the stone again, so that again the snowflakes cannot cover the stone, they melt away. There's a little activation of our presence, and nothing ever accumulates. No conceptual chains build up, no dreams arise, no fixations. The fire of wisdom is strong enough. Beginners who experience agitation due to an excess of analytical meditation, overdoing it with these exercises of trying to understand and looking, questioning, examining, then they should cultivate more shamatha, calm mind. But when they experience sluggishness, torpor, heaviness from too much resting meditation, they should cultivate vipassana. When both are balanced, we cultivate equanimity in suchness, without any active application. Mind rests in mind. So let me try to exemplify that a little bit more. You were so much, like the teacher, for example, has given you the task. Come back next week and tell me what's the difference between active mind and calm mind. Stimulate thinking and let go of thinking. See the difference. What is it? How? And then you're doing it and you stimulate thinking and then you let go. Then you stimulate an emotion and you let go. You stimulate different kinds of emotions, let go. You stimulate a memory. You're completely overdoing it. You're spending an hour or two just training, looking, and so on. And the mind becomes tense. And then everyone comes to the point of saying, come on, relax now. And the earlier the better, because this kind of examination should be done just a few times and then relax again. So this correcting measure of just staying, then that will immediately have the effect of experiencing more openness. The clarity is still there, but there is no more fuel in the agitation, so very quickly the mind feels open and balanced. And then as you continue a little bit longer, then the sluggishness comes. It can also come by itself without any previous exertion, just because one rests, one relaxes, and then one becomes sleepy. So here, a little motivation to know the nature of that sleepiness. How does it feel to be sleepy? And immediately you have a new degree of awareness, being interested. Now your eyes are already closed. How is it to be sleepy? And because you are interested in the nature of how it is to be sleepy, you can't fall asleep. You're there, you're present, and you go through that. And you might do more than that, but it's actually sufficient. There's a slight renewal of the interest to know, a moment of analytical stimulation. And you can do more. If you need more, you're welcome. And when these processes have become so familiar, then you change from being a young bird to an experienced eagle. You know, when the young birds fly from the nest, well, some of them are experts seemingly as soon as they leave, but most of them, they're fluttering around like this. Now meditators, they're fluttering around like this. They do one movement to be bright and clear, and then they notice, distress. Then they relax, then they get sleep. Then they straighten up again. They're fluttering. Actually, they're doing two strong movements. They're over-correcting their little mistakes in meditation. And an experienced meditator is like a big bird, an eagle, and just makes little movements of the tips of the wings and slides with the movements of the situation, the karmic winds, the emotional states, and just little adaptation of the feathers, the wings, and sails through. That's an experienced meditator. And here this is called without active application or with very little active application. You just do the minimum that's needed to correct. And you take, and when you feel that you're simply sitting in your habitual tendencies, you need to stimulate a little analysis, a little, maybe a moment of reflection, a moment of something, giving a brighter awareness. But as the mind is clear, flexible, bright, no interference. Just sail. There's nothing or almost nothing to be done. That's called mind rests in mind. Why is it called so? Because the attention, the awareness, does not go to the contents of experiences, of sensory experiences. The awareness stays in the experience of its own nature, in the experience of just how it is to be. First, this is still dualistic, and then as the control relaxes, you're not conceptualizing, you're not making an image of how it is to be, then there is just being. Mind not going anywhere, not being attracted to anything, not fighting with anything. You might notice, although in that state there might still be some sensory perceptions appearing, it does not change mind from resting in mind. These sensory perceptions which appear are mind. They are not to be excluded. Mind resting in mind does not depend on excluding anything. Because all that appears is of that same nature. So there is no need to integrate, to examine, or to exclude, or to fight. It's nothing of that nature. It's just seen as it is the very moment it arises, without a second movement. It's not first a non-seeing and then a seeing. The seeing is automatic. Just as now the visual seeing, as you're observing, is automatically knowing the movement that is happening. You don't have to change your way of seeing just because there is a movement. You see. And that's the same with the vivid nature of mind. It automatically knows without leaving its own nature. So, this is called resting in the view. This is how to do it. Resting in the view is knowing the empty nature, means the ungraspable nature of all experiences, and sustaining the freedom from elaborations that is experienced then, this simplicity of being. No comments. Freedom from elaborations means no extra mental movements, no extra conceptual movements in mind. That means no comments, no thoughts about what's happening, but also no extra non-conceptual movements of mind. Also no non-conceptual flickering of mind. What you normally call resting in the view, in simplicity, is the awakened state. That is, it begins with a resting in the view, which is slightly dualistic, but the actual resting in the view is experiencing life with the, you can say, the heart mind of an awakened one. And when that is the case, when mind rests in mind like that, then there is no reaction, no emotional reaction of clinging or rejection to anything that appears in this awareness. May I do like before? You were seeing, and I did this movement. Now when you were seeing in a relaxed way, nothing happens. But to someone who is seeing, looking in a non-relaxed way, there might be a moment of, especially if I do a movement like this, there might be a movement back, although you sit at home looking at a screen. So all the illusion takes on, and you react to the illusion. When you sit with an awareness relaxed in itself, the knowing of the nature, the illusory, ungraspable nature of appearances is such that there is no emotional reaction to what's happening. Mind is completely relaxed. You can also do that with the hearing sense. It starts already with the relaxation in shamatha, in resting meditation. When you make a shocking sound next to a person which is in resting meditation, then one can tell, even by the physical reaction of the person, how relaxed that person is. So people are meditating and the teacher might clap their hands. And then you have some which do like this. It's small, of course. I made it stronger. Little like this. And others, now you were a little bit prepared. I didn't want to shock you. You were staying relaxed. Now, you can have a detonation, an explosion next to a relaxed meditator. There will be no shock wave experienced in the meditator's mind. Okay? And the difference between a jhana absorption and resting in the view, resting in Mahamudra meditation, will be that there are meditative absorptions where the sound is not heard. So there will not be no reaction due to that. There are forms of dualistic meditation where the mind, the sound is heard, but the mind knows immediately, quicker than the reaction would come, that there is no need to react. Now, in Mahamudra meditation, in mind resting in mind, the sound will definitely be heard, and there will be no reaction to it, and there is all the flexibility, if needed, to react to it. The mind is not stuck in resting meditation, it's in a fluid state, knowing so well that there's a possibility to react, or to go and extinguish a fire or something. There is complete perception without clinging or aversion. Now this is easy to explain with visual impacts and with sounds, but it's also due to all other movements in mind. When the mind rests in mind, when awareness rests in awareness, this is called spontaneous self-awareness, aware by itself. It knows the nature of whatever arises and does not engage in illusion, in clinging to illusion. This is very important to know. So this is called rest. When it says resting in the view is knowing the empty nature, that's what is meant. And sustaining the freedom from elaborations is exactly being free from these reactions, these obliged emotional reactions, which this freedom results from the deep seeing of the nature of the experience. And now, in the later part of the chapter, then Dagpo Tashi Namgyal explains wisdom, discerning wisdom, prajna. And that is this famous differentiation of wisdom arising from study or hearing, wisdom arising from contemplation, and wisdom arising from meditation. You might know that from the Mahamudra prayer of the third Karmapa. So, discerning wisdom arising from study and contemplation cuts through misinterpretations concerning reality, so-called wrong views. And the example is like showing a horse the racetrack. Okay? I start with the example. If you want a horse to win a race, you guide it through where it will have to run. The races referred to here are races in the mountains in Tibet, okay? There are obstacles. So you show the horse where it has to go through. And maybe you make a slow ride along the track. And this is what is being done when we study with a teacher, like now. We hear the teaching and we contemplate, we apply it to ourselves. The horse, when being led the way, being shown the way, it will have inner learning happening. How will I take this? Yeah, how it knows that it is preparing for a race, and it will prepare itself. It does not really know yet how it will be at full speed, but it's preparing itself. So the same thing is with the teachings. The teachings in the laboratory of this protected situation of this room, they take us through the possible events in meditation and what can happen and how you can sometimes use resting meditation and sometimes analytical meditation, and you learn. It leaves an imprint in mind. We are getting prepared. And we are preparing especially by eliminating everything that will not be helpful. The wrong views, the misleading views, the assumptions about reality which are not helpful. You might not have understood my quick explanation about not finding units of time, but somewhere something stayed in your mind that maybe my concept of time is not very fitting, and you will be open to reinvestigate your experience of time when you are actually doing it, when you're actually meditating. In the same way, every instruction opens new perspectives and questions and does away with, if there is wisdom arising, then when the wisdom works, when the student understands, then less helpful interpretations of reality drop away. They are not being nurtured anymore. They are not being entertained. So it's a very good preparation. And then we need the discerning wisdom arising from meditation. Meditation here means direct, non-conceptual experience. Before it is being interpreted, the raw material of just being, that's meditation. We work with that. And discerning wisdom will know in a form of direct understanding just how all phenomena are ungraspable, without a stable core, without self-entity. This knowing will come from the direct experience. Before it was an intellectual assumption. It's a hypothesis about reality that we are working with due to the understanding coming from study and contemplation, but we don't really know. And the idea is not to prove it, that it is so. The idea is to examine further is it so or is it different? And you can be sure that the conceptual understanding from study and contemplation still has to be corrected. It is definitely wrong. You can be sure about that. So we are not going to prove that the conceptual understanding is right, because that would not be awakening. The conceptual understanding is hollow. It is not based on direct cognition. And when you have a very well-trained scholar, let's take someone like Naropa, a very well-trained scholar, who was the master of his time in explaining and in debate and so on. And that master is guided from intellectual understanding into direct understanding, realization. This master will give the same teaching about the same topics that he was teaching before in a different way. Something has changed. The way to communicate that, the way to present it will be different. Even some types of teaching will not be given anymore, because one understands good for nothing, not helpful. Not helpful for liberating students or for awakening. So the impact can be seen when a person shifts from intellectual wisdom, contemplative wisdom, to direct understanding arising from meditation. So, this discerning wisdom, this prajna, in a calm mind, allows for clear insight to arise. Just like light coming into fine eyes, perceiving well, allows for clear seeing. Clear seeing can only arise because there is sufficient light. Now, shamatha practice, or let's better say again, calm mind, yes, a calm mind is able to perceive very clearly. It's like a pair of good eyes, yes. They are unimpaired, they are wonderful, they have no lack of capacity. It's like the eagle eyes, yeah, the fantastic eyes to see. Now the best eyes cannot see without light. And this light is prajna, is this discerning wisdom. Wisdom sheds light. It brings in light, and then whatever the clear mind with its enlightening and this capacity to light up, to make things bright, to bring them into focus. This capacity is needed, that things are brought into focus, that we are interested for them in a completely open state of mind. That's when the understanding arises. And what we call prajna, what we call wisdom, this discerning wisdom is an interest, an open interest that brings a field of experience in front of our inner eyes. And then, because of that calm mind, we are able to stay in that and explore that field of experience. And from that, all understanding arises. Until we do not need to even stimulate the interest anymore. We do not need to stimulate any brightening up of any field of experience anymore. We enter the natural brightness of mind, the natural lucidity of mind. The mind is completely stable, is completely clear. There is no more closing of the interest to know. That's what we call purification of ignorance. The tendency to shut off is purified. Awareness is completely open, naturally open, as it is by nature, and knows. As simple as eyes will see as soon as there is light. This is called the natural lucidity of awareness. And then you think it's the end of the story, but I should be honest with you, no, it's not. You will not stay in that open, lucid state of mind. Again, blockages will arise. Again, clinging will arise. Again, you will fight with life. And then you need to come back to a little analytical meditation. You need to use again a little sharpening of focus. Look into the one who gets angry, into the one who has some desires, the one who gets bored, or whatever other interesting experience arises. So again, however often you might have experienced this open, self-aware lucidity, at some moment when a clinging, a blockage arises and you can't immediately relax into it, somehow a habitual tendency takes on, then you will see that you recur, you use again the analytical process of identifying, looking into, examining, and and you're back into it. That's how it works. So don't think that for a long time you will be able to do just open resting of the mind. It will be the combination of resting meditation and analytical meditation. Both are needed, and together they lead into open awareness. Thank you very much.